All right, we've got some good attendance here. Thank you everyone for joining us. I just want to let you know we are doing this through a webinar, so everybody's starting out as muted. This is going to be recorded and it will be posted to the city's short-term rental webpage likely tomorrow afternoon, so that those who are not able to participate or want to circle back on any particular discussion items can do that. So I'm going to be giving a brief presentation, and then we're going to be opening it up for questions and answers. I do see that some people are already using the hand raise, so we will be getting into those after the presentation and opening it up for Q&A. So with that, I'm going to share my screen so that everybody can see the presentation, and we can begin. So, yeah, all right, just a moment. So thank you for joining us. We're going to be going over the short-term rental permit application, as well as some of the process and procedures during the permitting process now that short-term rental permits have been approved with the city. So just to give you a little background of our agenda for this evening, we're going to give you some background on the short-term rental programs that have been approved by the city, specifically in the coastal zone and out of the coastal zone, and what those approvals and parameters are associated with them. We're going to go through the application for short-term rental permits, and then the necessary submittal items that go with it, as well as do some questions and answers for you all. So to give you some quick background, as I did say, there were specific approvals done for areas located within the coastal zone and outside of the coastal zone. So here we have a map of the coastal zone, and you can see in the dark blue line that meanders through the city is the coastal zone. So anything seaward of that is located within the coastal zone, and anything located outside of that is outside of the coastal zone. So both programs are very similar. However, there are some nuanced differences that I'll go over. And both of those programs are posted to our city's website on the short-term rental page. So here we have kind of a comparison of the programs in and out of the side of the coastal zone as they relate to caps, which is the primary difference between the two. So as you can see in the coastal zone, the cap for number of short-term rental permits applies to the specific types of short-term rental permits, which is the non-primary, which we'll get into the definitions of the different types here shortly, but the non-primary and the multifamily homestay short-term rentals, as well as the mixed-use parcels. Those types of short-term rentals that are not associated with the cap are the homestay and primary short-term rentals. And the cap does get adjusted in terms of reduced for every homestay and non-primary short-term rental that's issued. So right now we have an existing 69 permits located within the coastal zone that are grandfathered in and have been operating since at least 2016, which offers for an additional 46 permits to bring it to 115. Outside the coastal zone, there's a total cap for all types of 115 permits. However, there is a sub cap for the non-primary short-term rentals at 60. And important to note that we do have 60 existing short-term rental non-primary permits. So for those to be open for new non-primary short-term rental permits, the properties would either need to be sold or the owner would expire their permit, would walk away from their permit. So Outside of the coastal zone, there's going to be a two-phased permit issuance. Initial rollout will be 25 permits, at which time the city will evaluate the program and how it's going citywide and present the findings to the city council, who have the opportunity to consider an additional 30 permits to be issued for that area outside of the coastal zone. So in total, there's capacity for 230 permits citywide. So the prioritization for short-term rental permits for the programs located within and outside of the coastal zone, so for all areas of the city, is based on the compatibility of the different types of short-term rentals in the neighborhood. So the number one priority type is the primary short-term rentals and homestay short-term rentals. And like I said, we'll be going over the definitions here in just a moment. Then we have the multifamily homestays, followed by the mixed-use parcel short-term rentals, and then the non-primary short-term rentals. So those properties that would be ineligible for obtaining a permit are those that have any existing violations on the property, either deemed or observed as part of the permit application process or upon the inspection of the property. So the permit application is broken out into 7 sections here, beginning with the permit application itself. And then there's a number of other items that are associated with it, including the permit submittal checklist, as well as ownership information, agent authorization, program owner, property ownership, regulation acknowledgement. Then we have definitions located in there to aid users and what type of short-term rental they are, as well as other elements of the program. And then our good neighbor brochure acknowledgement. So with that, I'll jump into the application, which is already posted on the city short-term rental webpage. Oh, I'm sorry. Before that, with the application, we want to note that the applications, the soonest that an application can be submitted is going to be May 1st at 9 a.m. So the city's not going to be accepting any early submissions or any wait lists. So hold off on submitting your applications until May 1st, 9 a.m. because if you submit anytime prior to that, your application is going to be considered not submitted. So they will be submitted via our short-term rental website or email address, which is str@danapoint.org. So the applications, along with all the required supporting documents for the application that we'll go over, will all be attached to the email that would be sent at May 1st at 9 a.m. at the soonest time. My name is John Champa. I'm the planner who's been overseeing the short-term rental program here and the development of the applications. And we've got my email here as well as the phone number. So, feel free to reach out and ask me any questions either via email, phone, or, even setting up a meeting to go over it prior to the May or even after the May 1st opportunity. So here we have page 1 of the application. Just some general information that is required. I'll go through it briefly. Obviously, starting first with the property address for the short-term rental. Then we're looking for whether it's a new short-term rental or a renewal. And if it is a renewal, we're looking for the existing permit number. So there are, as I said, existing grandfathered in short-term rentals out there with 129. And so those, when they are up for a renewal, would be checking the renewal box and placing their permit renewal number on there. As far as short-term rental type, I'm going to go through and give you a summary of the definitions of these. However, the definitions are also part of the program and in the application. So the primary short-term rental is where it is your primary residence. So you live there full-time for taxes and all other legal documentation. This is your primary residence. This is where you live the majority of the year. And let's say you don't live in your house for periods of time, whether you're a teacher and you're able to travel over the summer or have other abilities to travel and are not there 100% of the time. This would offer the opportunity to rent the home up to 60 total days a year. And so that would be monitored by the city as well as the city's third-party monitoring site to ensure that that's the case. And again, that is one of the top priority types. Then what we have is non-primary short-term rental. So this is not your primary residence. It's a second, third, or investment property, and you're looking to rent it out with no limitation on the number of days in a calendar year, and is the typical type of short-term rental that is operated in most areas. Then what we have is a multifamily homestay. So this is a situation where it's a duplex, triplex, or otherwise, where it is your primary residence. You live there in one of the units. And if it's a duplex or triplex, then you would have the opportunity to rent out one of the units for an unlimited number of days over a calendar year. However, when it is rented, you're required to be on the property to address any issues. A homestay is a short-term rental is where it is your primary residence, and you would rent out one, a bedroom while being at the property. So this would be limited to a portion of your home while you are there. Then then I think we have a little edit here, but yeah, and then those are the types of short-term rentals. To be added to the application, this first section here is the emergency contact. So some people have their properties would be managed by a property manager or a real estate company or otherwise. And so that primary contact would be listed there, as well as their phone number and email, to be able to address issues if they arise, whether it's during the daytime or nighttime, so any time of day. So if you don't have a company that's managing it and you're going to be the one that's overseeing it, then this would be your contact information here. It's important that if it is a management company that's overseeing it, that this phone number be to the direct person who is overseeing the property. If it is to just a standard phone line for the company, that's unacceptable, and we need a direct line to that emergency contact. In addition to that, we're going to need the number of bedrooms for the unit, as well as the number of parking spaces for the property. If the property is located within a homeowners association, we will be requesting a letter of authorization from the homeowners association that would be included with your application. And again, if you are using an agent or management company, in this lower section here, we're looking for their contact information, as well as the property owner's contact information. And then if there is more than one property owner, let's say it's in a trust or corporation or LLC, then there's an additional form that's included in this application where you would provide those additional ownership information on that form. The application fee is to be submitted via check and within 72 hours or 3 days of the submission of your application. So for new permits, for non-primary short-term rentals, that's $780. For all other types, it's $585. And then the permit renewals for those grandfathered in or in future years is going to be $620 for the non-primary and $465 for all the other types. Here we have our checklist of items to be submitted with the application that's emailed. So these would be included as attachments. So the first item here is the property owner's primary residence verification. So here what we're looking for is property tax homeowner's exemption or similar information verifying that it is the primary residence. So this is applicable to those types of short-term rentals where you're operating out of your primary residence. So it's your primary short-term rental permit type, homestay short-term rental type, multifamily homestay only. So it's not applicable to the non-primary or more traditional types. as well as any mixed-use parcel short-term rentals. And then a secondary form of evidence is required, which could be anything including but not limited to income tax returns, car registration, driver's license, or other similar items. So the next item for submittal included in this is the property owner information. So again, as I was previously stating, if the property is in a trust or corporation or otherwise, and there's several members, then we need all of their additional information, and that's in section 3 of the application that can be completed. If you are in a homeowners association, as I said, we're looking for that letter from the homeowners association authorizing the operation of a short-term rental permit. If you are using an agent or management company, then we're looking for the agent authorization form. That does require signature of the owner, as well as a notary of the signature, and the notary, a signature of the property management or property manager. That property manager signature does not require a notary. Then next we have the property owner regulation acknowledgement, which is basically an initial checklist of all of the conditions of operation for short-term rentals, ensuring that you've gone through and you've read all of them and will be abiding by them. Lastly, we have our good neighbor acknowledgement form, which is a handout with additional information, which is signed and would be attached in that email for submission. And then again, as I said, the application fee, which will be submitted by check within 72 hours, based on the appropriate dollar amount for the type. Items that would be submitted prior to permit issuance. So once your project has been submitted, it's going to be gone through and it's going to be categorized based on the priority type. And then we'll be going through them to determine which ones are at the top of the list and going through those. So at that point, when you've been selected in your next step for a permit issuance, we'll be requesting the general liability insurance, which is required to be $1 million, and has some additional parameters associated with indemnification of the city and the Coastal Commission if you are located within the coastal zone. You'll also be required to obtain the transient occupancy tax registration certificate, which would be produced by the city's finance department, as well as the property inspection. So the property inspection is when it is one of the last steps where a city inspector will be going out to the property, making sure that the application is consistent with what's out of the property, ensuring that there's property safety measures in there like smoke detectors, fire alarms, as well as making sure that there are no unpermitted improvements with the property. So here we have our short-term rental ownership form that would be completed for any properties that have more than one property owner associated with it. So that would be completed and attached in the email as well. Then here's the agent authorization form. So this is filled out. Again, it is notarized by the property owner, as well as identifying the address of the property and the signature of the agent. Again, the signature of the agent does not require a notary. So the property owner acknowledgement form, which is a checklist, again, on the application, just identifying here of some of those items that are included in there, which is having an emergency contact for all types of short-term rentals, ensuring compliance with CCNR and HOA improvements or HOA regulations if applicable, the requirement for an inspection and authorizing an inspection, compliance with parking issues, advertising the short-term rental permit with the permit number issued by the city, so that would be included on all platforms, listing that in the description and any other areas deemed necessary on your advertisements. That the minimum days for rental is 2, so there's no 1-day rentals allowed for the city. It's got to be a minimum 2-day rentals. short-term rental is considered anything less than 30 days. So, a minimum of 2, but up to 29 days. There's specific noise regulations in there, and as well as a 30-minute response time to address complaints by the required or the designated agent or owner in charge of the property. This is the Good Neighbor brochure here, just identifying some specific things. A copy of this is signed by the property owner, as well as a blank form is required to be posted in the unit. So this is to ensure that the visitors, the guests, are aware of being a good neighbor, issues, regulations associated with noise, parking, trash. Just reminding them that there is a 24-hour hotline for addressing complaints. So the next steps in the permit application process is, as I previously said, the applications are online now. The earliest that anyone can submit is going to be May 1st at 9 a.m. to the STR@danapoint.org. So no early submissions, and there's no wait list prior to May 1st. Again, the fee needs to be paid 3 days, at least 3 days following the application submittal via check to the city. And the neighborhood notification will occur upon issuance of permits to neighbors. So this will notify abutting neighbors. This will be sent out by the city, but basically it'll be a notification to your neighbors, as well as any occupants, if they aren't necessarily the property owners of the abutting properties, notifying them of the where parking is to be located, the acceptable number of occupants during the day and night, as well as if there are issues, who to contact, as well as your necessary contact information or your emergency contact. So, as I said at the beginning, a cap has been established for areas located within the coastal zone and out of the coastal zone. And when that cap is met, a wait list will be established by the city. So all of the applications that come through will be organizing and categorizing those and issuing permits. And then those that were not able to obtain a permit will be automatically added to the wait list. So you won't have to do anything to be added to the wait list. We'll be notifying you once the cap is met and that you're on the wait list. So your fee for a short-term rental permit will be utilized as your placeholder. So if at any point in time you decide that you no longer want to be on the wait list, you can contact the city, and the city will be able to refund your fee, and you'll be removed from the wait list. So with that, I'm going to be moving forward to the question and answer portion of this webinar. So I'm going to end sharing my screen. Let's see here. No, I know. There we go. I do see some hands raised. So what I'll be doing is calling your name, and then if you're not unmuted automatically, please unmute yourself and ask us whatever questions you have. So first up, I see Lori. So I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi.
Hello, Lori.
Hi. Can you tell me what the difference is between like the short term and the long term? Again, the number of days.
So short term is anything less than 30 days.
Okay.
And if you're long term, if you're doing more than 30 days, and that's all that you're doing is 30 days or more, then there's no short-term rental permit needed at all. However, if you do want to advertise for less than 30 days, then you will need a permit.
Okay, and then the next question I have is, I do have somebody that lives at my house full time, so that application would be homestay application? Is that what it is?
That's what it sounds like. So if somebody's living in your home and you would be, whether they're a long-term renter, and so you would make, another room available for short-term rental purposes, then that would be a homestay, correct?
Okay, perfect. That's all I have to ask you.
All right, thank you, Lori. All right, next up, I'm gonna call on Matt.
Hey, John, how are you?
Good, Matt.
Sorry, I missed your last meeting, so this is kind of a debrief because I had some obligations. I've been attending them at the city council regularly. I did want to just confirm, did you guys rule Monarch Hills to be in the coastal or outside the coastal zone?
Monarch Hills is in the coastal zone. So if we don't already, we will be posting on our short-term rental page, just a PDF map that you'll be able to pull up and zero in on, whatever community you want. However, there is a searchable map that's up there now,
Okay.
where you turn on one or two layers. You may need to turn on one or two layers, and you'll be able to zoom in on a specific address and see whether it's in the coastal zone or not.
Got it. I have a couple of questions, but so right now, if again, my mom occupies the unit, I think you and I had talked about it, and potentially when she's not in there, I want her to rent it, but it might be in excess of 60 days. So it doesn't sound like I would be able to do it as a primary unit, even though it was a needs unit purchased for my mom. I'd have to do it as non-primary, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, if you have any likelihood of doing it more than 60 days for a calendar year, you're going to need to do the non-primary.
Got it. And because it's in the coastal zone, you guys don't have any permits for non-primary, correct? Because they're all used. If you're a newbie.
So no, the outside the coastal zone, we're already at the cap for non-primary.
Oh, okay.
However, with the sale of a property, it's not transferable to a new property owner, whether you're in or out of the coastal zone. So, I would still encourage those who are looking to get a non-primary short-term rental permit outside the coastal zone to submit their applications, because there could be, one or two or even more that drop off, and there be availability. So
I'm sorry to interrupt, but John, you said Monarch Hills is in the coastal zone, correct? Not
Correct.
outside. So there's going to be some room for non-primaries in the coastal zone, right?
correct. However, the
Cool.
permit issuances will be based on the prioritization that I went over.
Sure.
So those are of the lowest tier of the prioritization.
Sure. And then I had a question because I had sent you an email. In lieu of the HOA letter, if you provide, I think I have sent you as well as one of the members of the cabinet, the CCNRs and rules and regulations from Monarch Hills that show that they're permissible. Do you still need a letter from the HOA, or do those rules and regulations and CCRs work in lieu of?
We need a letter from the association, and
if-
we had a webinar yesterday with representatives of the associations and let them all know that we are looking for letters from the association.
Got
That's
it.
one of the reasons why the window for permit issuances is 2 months. So May
Yep.
1st is
Got
that
it.
we want property owners to have time to complete these applications and make sure they're thorough, ask questions, as well as get this necessary information from their homeowners associations.
Got it. Another question, sorry, I just have a couple and just I won't bother you. If I don't have a property management now, in the likely event that I am granted to have an STR, and I choose to do a property management company, do I have to have that at the time of permit, or could I do that at a later date?
So I would say that if you don't have one, then, and at the time of your submittal, but you're planning on doing one, as soon as you plan on doing one, then we're going to need that information. So
Got it.
prior to any further activity, we're going to need that information, because
Cool.
if they're managing it, we need to make sure that we have their emergency contact. And if
Yeah.
you submit your application and there is no emergency contact for that person, then, if there's a problem, it's not going to be good.
Got it. And then one last thing, if you submit it and put in a fee, I think you already covered this. In the event you're not granted, it's used to kind of like hold your spot, right? And if you choose to fall off the list, you refund the money, right? That's pretty much how that works.
Correct. And thanks for asking that, because one other component to that is that at which point in time, if you are on the wait list and you want to be, you then become selected,
Yeah,
that fee is used for your first year. So you don't have to pay the fee again.
got it. Got it. That's fair. That makes perfect sense. The last question, it's kind of, answer at your discretion. Does the city have a list of HOA, not HOA property managers rather, but property management companies that you guys have had issues with, or people to avoid in the space, like VRBO, Airbnb, anything like that? I'm asking this because I would not want to go pick something in the event that I am selected that would create chaos for you guys that you guys have already had issues with.
Yeah, we don't. However, I would just ask for referrals.
From other people or you guys or
From us.
okay,
From
got it.
the other users of their services.
All right, got it. And you said you had already a meeting with all the HOA reps, so Monarch Hills was represented in that from Keystone?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay, they've had a lot of back and forth and changes within that HOA, so I just, sometimes it's just like pulling teeth to get them to do something, so I just want to make sure they're aware that this is going to come. All right, thank you guys so much, and thanks for your patience.
You're welcome, Matt.
All right.
So next I see you. Did I already call? Judith?
Hi, I'm Judith Rising. Yes, and I have a couple of questions, and you've clarified quite a few. My first question is on the parking. When you're talking about parking in the permit application, is that the same as parking in the regulations or whatever you call? So it has to be off-street?
Correct.
So many spaces off-street. But what does it mean when it says in the permit application that the community development director, is that you?
That's Brenda.
Okay, may, when unusual size parking or other physical characteristics are shown, approve a greater maximum number of vehicles as part of the STR permit application. So there's flexibility there?
There's flexibility to allow for additional parking. This is really on those properties that are, much larger. Let's say it's a, 5 or 6 bedroom house, and, looking at the neighborhood and that there's adequacy to allow for additional vehicles at the property. So that's at the director's discretion.
Okay, and then my next question is talking about the owners. So you have in the application, you have the property owners, you have to list all the property owners. But what if all the property owners, say it's 50-50, there's 4 owners, 50-50. What if 50% do not want to have an STR?
For a single property?
No, it's a duplex property that's jointly owned, but the half of the people do not want an STR. How what is their legal? Where do we show that? How to?
Sounds like that might be an issue, Judith, that you'd have to deal with your joint partners. You're saying you have 4 individuals that own a duplex, and obviously you don't have agreement amongst the owners. That's really a situation that you'd have to be dealing with. If you submit an application representing that you are and have the authority to represent the entire property, identify those property owners, then it's really an arrangement you have with your partners.
But what does the city do? Because you're not asking all of us to sign. You're just saying that one of these people is the property owner and they sign. So the property owners might not even know. The people who don't want an STR might not even know that the other person has submitted an application. because their
Sounds-
signature is not required.
It sounds like you'd be misrepresenting, though, your partnership if you state that you have the authority to apply for this type of use. And in submitting the application, you're indicating that you have approval from your partnership. So it's not something the city's going to be getting involved with, obviously, in situations like that. But obviously, if we have a situation where an application is submitted and we find out after the fact that some of the information that we've made our decision on is incorrect, we do have the ability to withdraw that permit.
Okay, and then I had a question. I think I asked you about the parking, and I didn't understand the homestay. So I own the property, but my mom is living in the property. I'm not living in the property, and it's a duplex, for example, but I could use the other duplex as a homestay. I'm not living there, my mom is. I own it, she's just living there.
So for it to be a multifamily homestay, which sounds like this would be, it needs to be your primary residence. So this doesn't sound like it's your primary residence, so this would be a non-primary short-term rental.
Okay. So I would have to live there, not my mom, even though I'm a
Correct.
property owner.
Correct.
And then one last question is the STR application fee. So I put in my application and I pay the fee, but I don't get approved. Is that refunded to me?
So if you don't get approval, you mean if you get denied, or you mean if
Yes.
you get added to the wait list?
Oh, so if I'm on the wait list, well, tell me the difference, please.
So basically, if you get denied, would be like you gave us false information and we denied your application, or we did an inspection and there's illegal improvements and we denied your application, then I guess I would defer to Brenda on that, whether the fee would be returned. But for the wait list, let's say you submit your application and just you were late to get it in, or you're of one of the lower prioritizations and you didn't get a permit. That fee is your placeholder to hold your application spot, as well as whenever you are selected to be your first year payment.
Okay.
So if you don't want to be on the wait list and you realize where you are in the line, then you can ask for your money back and we'll withdraw your application and you'll be removed from the wait list.
Thank you.
So you did bring up a good point, Judith, which I'm going to meet you, but one point I wanted to make is that the new program, it only allows for one permit per owner. So if you already have a short-term rental permit, you're one of those grandfathered in properties, you would be ineligible for a new short-term rental permit. If you have ownership of a property with several people, like Judith was identifying, all of those people are considered an owner of a short-term rental permit, so they wouldn't be able to obtain another permit. So that's something that we'll be going through and will be vetted through our permit application review process. And if we identify that you're either associated with or sole owner of another property with a short-term rental permit, then we would notify you that you're ineligible for a new short-term rental permit. So with that, I'm now going to be calling on Shelly Black and ask you to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Couple questions. The first one was for the outside the coastal zone, the non-primary 60 are already taken, but you're going to be taking 25 primary?
Really of any other type.
Okay, so they can't, unless obviously you're not discouraging people to submit non-primary because someone might fall off or there might space might come available. But if I'm understanding correctly, there are 25 spots available. They're just not to non-primary.
That is correct.
Okay. Another thing, we own a home that I always thought it's a single family home. It's looks like a single family home. There's no other homes on the property. It's 2,500 square feet, 4 bedrooms. But when I look at the map, I'm noticing that it says multi-use zone. Did I buy on a lot that could have had multi-use?
So the city zoning designation is somewhat different than what the active use of a property is. So yeah, it could be zoned to allow for, a duplex or something more than that. However, we will be looking at what its current use is. So if it is just currently a single family, then that's what we'll be looking at.
So I checked the box for single family, not multi-use, even though that's the way the lot looks.
Correct.
Okay. You've answered all the other questions. Oh, on May 1st, when you submit the file, is it going to be, I've done this in other cities and states, so I'm familiar with it, but we usually turn it into the city. We don't do it online. Is it going to be a process of all those documents you ask, uploading each one as a PDF file, or is it going to be you submit the entire package at one time?
It's going to be one package. So all of these appropriate documents or applicable documents would be attached to the single email that's sent to the str@danapoint.org.
Okay, is there a file size limit or PDF or anything like that that you can share now, or is that in preparation of getting it all ready?
There shouldn't be a problem with getting the attachment of all those documents. We can handle a significant amount, and we've already spoken to our HR, or I'm sorry, our IT, to ensure that what the submittal process is, and ensure we're ready for these submissions.
Okay, and outside the coastal zone, what is your highest priority permit you're looking at first? The 60-day primary owner one?
So the highest priority is the primary residence, which you just stated. So it's your primary residence, and you can rent it up to 60 calendar days a year. And then also is the homestay short-term rentals. So that's also your primary residence, but you rent out a room for 30 days or less, or for less than 30 days.
Okay. Okay, and last one, and it's really the last one. You mentioned once you are on, you've made it to the next step, but you don't have a permit. They're going to do a preview of your house, and you want to see an insurance policy indemnifying you and naming you. Why would somebody change their insurance policy if they don't even know if they have a permit yet?
So that's why we are not requiring the insurance policy at the time of permit submittal. So May 1st. And so basically, when we've selected you and we said, okay, we're going to go out there, we're going to get all the, you're queued up and ready to go. We'll need that insurance policy. So you'll be giving some advance notice that, to get your insurance policy in order, so that that can be included with the kind of the final step.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So next I see Jeff. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, thank you. I'm looking for a primary rental within the coastal zone. And for my understanding is that there's no cap. So if we're dealing with changes in our HOA, we might not be able to meet the date of May 1st. So if we're late to the party, is there still no cap? So we can basically maybe 8 months down the road still apply and obtain a permit?
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. And also I was talking to Matt. He said about references for different HOA association management companies. Is there some that are better to deal with for this, who are a little more up to date with these, that you guys would recommend? Oh, and also for the insurance, can we show like Airbnb insurance or something? Would that be all right if we show the $1 million policy that we have and we use Airbnb or different apps like that?
so to your first question, well, I guess with the insurance question, because that's probably the quicker one, is at the time of when we're ready to issue the permit, we'll let you know when you've been, selected and we're doing the inspections and all that. At that time is when you would need to provide that. So if it's an insurance policy that's $1 million that's indemnifying the city and or the Coastal Commission, then that's the time that would need to be placed. So we don't specify a particular insurance company to do that. As long as they provide it, that's acceptable to the city. Then second for the references, yeah, we can't make any references or recommendations for a property owner management company. That's something that you're going to need to do your due diligence on. And
I will add though, just for anyone's information, we have had very good experiences with the property management companies that are active in our community. We expect them to be very involved with the properties and responsive to any issues that come up. And fortunately, we've had very good luck in that situation. So I can't speak to having any bad experiences. So you should be pretty good hands no matter who you look for.
Okay, yeah, I just want to appreciate all the things you guys done. This is a great opportunity. So just trying to take full advantage of this. And yeah, so I think you answered my questions. Just being primary, we could be a little late and still get a permit. And also, is there any time you're going to close this down? Or is this open until the foreseeable future?
it's open for the foreseeable future. And then just to build on what Brenda said, as part of the regulations, it requires if there is an issue at your property, it requires a response to that issue within 30 minutes. And in some cases, you may have to come to the property. So the selection of a management company or agent, they're going to need to be able to address that. So that would be basically your emergency contact, which could be any of those people. So that will be critical. Because if you're unable to respond, then that will be a violation. And as part of the violations for short-term rentals, you're allowed on the third violation, you would lose your permit. So, and that's not over per year, that's over the life of the permit. So it's very important to be on top of all of these regulations and avoid any violations.
Thank you. Also, yeah, it's no problem. I'll be close by. And also, we are in a unit with 40 people, and I believe 5 so far interested in this. Is there a limit to how many people per unit? So we have 40 units here in our community. Would there be a limit to say if all 5 of us wanted to get a permit, would that be allowed? Or, for example, if 10 of us wanted to have a permit, would that be allowed?
So for some instances, there is a code provision in there that limits the number of permits for a particular property to avoid the type of use, which is a hotel, and that's 6 or more. As well as I believe there's a provision for limitation to 20% in the coastal zone. So I don't see an issue with that. However, again, since you're in a homeowners association, you're going to need a letter from your homeowners association prior to any of you obtaining a permit.
Thank you. Yes, I understand. That's the only problem we face here, but nothing we can't fix. So I appreciate all the help.
All right. Next, I see John Boycott. I'm going to ask you to unmute. On. There you are.
Hey, John, before we jump on to John Boydak, it was Jeff was talking about limitation number of permits allowed in a multi-tenant structure. And in the coastal zone, I think it also applies outside the coastal zone. If you have 6 or more units, no more than 20% of the units can be used as short-term rentals. So you might want to take a look at that, Jeff, since it sounds like you fall in that category. So John Boydak? Maybe you want to move on, John. We have quite a few other callers wanting to speak.
Yeah, okay, looks like next we've got Peter. Can I ask you to unmute?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yes.
can, Peter.
Hello, hi. Thanks for hosting us for this session. Just a couple questions. The first one, I think you answered that. I just want to clarify and make sure that I'm not misunderstanding. So outside the coastal zone, you basically have these 25 permits, and it can be non-primary.
So the non-primary is outside the coastal zone is capped at 60. And right now in our active permit records, we see that we have 60. So right now we are at our cap, but that could change between now and May.
Okay, that could change. So if there's an opening, then we would be able to apply. But otherwise, we'll most likely, let's say if the 60 stays, I apply for the non-primary in outside of the coastal zone, then basically the likely outcome is that I will be on the waiting list.
That's correct.
Got it. Okay. And I guess like from the application perspective, like on May 1st, is there any, like when you evaluate all the applications, do you have any like priorities in terms of, I don't know, time priorities, or I understand, like you have the priority for the categories like primary, non-primary, etc. But like for the same category within that same category, like do you have a prioritization on like the time, like is it time priority or anything else that you would be looking at?
Yeah, so if you're of the same category, then it would be based on when the application was submitted.
Okay, so it's based on that, and like obviously, like you probably will have a lot of applications, and just based on that the application form, like all the information seems to be fairly generic. So like how just can you go into like a little bit of how you guys would be evaluating those applications?
So yeah, I mean, we're just checking to make sure all the information's there. If
Okay.
it's all there, then you're on your way. Obviously, there's an inspection of the property, and we're going to be going through and making sure the ownership information lines up, as well as there isn't another, one of the owners, or if there is only one owner, doesn't own another short-term rental permit in the city. So
Okay.
yeah, it's just a matter of making sure all the information's there and accurate.
Okay, so it's just the accuracy. Got it. Okay, and it's part of that inspections of the checklist. That is there a checklist on the types of things that you require to fulfill the requirements, like fire alarms and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so we should be posting a checklist here in the next few days or week. But basically, yeah, it's just necessary safety parameters in terms of fire, appropriate smart smoke detectors and whatnot. They're going to be going through and making sure there are code violations in there in terms of legal improvements, and so we'll have a detailed checklist that will be posted to our STR page probably within the next week or so.
Got it. Okay, thank you. My last question is, so let's say if I am like still doing some remodel to the house, right? And let's say if I got the permit, and the house is not done yet, like is there like a time that you can wait until that's finished so that you can complete that inspection?
So yeah, I guess we would what we would do is your permit would be queued up for next to be issued, and then once the permit or once those improvements are completed, then we would go through do the inspection.
So you can wait like a month or something like that, basically.
Yeah, and in addition to that, one point to make is that one of the requirements for the short-term rental program in and out of the coastal zone is that if you're not operating your short-term rental permit and you just want to get one to get one, if it's non-operational for a year, you will be losing your permit. However, there's a caveat to that. If you are, let's say, doing a remodel or something like that, then it does give an extra year or up to an extra year in those circumstances. But for those that want to get one just to hold on to one, or think that they might use one but don't end up using it, over the course of a year, if they don't use it, they will be losing it.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. I think that's all I need. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, next up, I see Brian. So I'm going to ask you to.
Hey, John.
There you are, Brian.
Yep. Good to see you. Great presentation tonight. Couple things just for the gentleman. I think it was Jeffrey. The Airbnb coverage, that's not going to qualify for the type of insurance that you're requiring because they're not going to give the indemnity statement. It's a very generic insurance package, and it just doesn't do what you're going to ask for it. So he'll want to look into other insurance. The question I have, John, I've had the permit since 2015, 2016. And you mentioned that you're already capped at non-primary. How did you guys go about determining the primaries and non-primaries based on the existing permits?
So there may be one, I think that there's a 1 to 3 permits outside the coastal zone that are a type other than non-primary. Almost every single one is non-primary. However, there are a couple that are.
Brian brings up a good point, though, is our past application never asked for that to be stipulated.
No.
So the permits are required to be renewed annually. So as those new permits, or I'm sorry, the old permits are renewed, we will be asking for that detail to be provided. So say someone provides, wants to renew it, and hey, they are actually a homestay, that does then increase the a number for the non-primary.
So I guess my question would be for those of us who have been in existence on permits for a long period, do we get priority when it comes to the renewal for when the definition may change? I'm kind of one of the weird ones because I have a multiplex where I reside in the multiplex, but on your documentation purposes, I might not be able to show primary residence on my tax return because I just moved back into the building recently. So I'm trying to see how that's going to fall out in terms of your documentation pieces for primary versus non-primary based on people who had past permits that wasn't a requirement for.
Right, you're basically grandfathered, whatever
Okay.
type of permit you are.
Okay. And then just lastly, are you guys going to be refunding any of the existing money on the permit fee that we paid for our yearly permit based on this new permit starting earlier than the expiration of our old permit?
For renewals, your renewal date will not change. So you're not expected to submit an application on May 1st if you have an existing permit.
Okay, so I could be waiting until my July 1 timeframe that I'm supposed to be turning it in
That's correct.
to do it. Okay. And then lastly, John, I think you were mentioning something about parking. Has the parking regulation changed? I mean, we've always had the 2 spaces requirement, but I heard you state that the message being sent out to the neighbors stating where the parking should be. Has there been a policy put in place that you're going to try to enforce non-public street parking for people in case they want to park on the street?
So basically, as part of the notification, is going to be identifying the number of spaces that are allocated for it.
But no, we cannot enforce people from not parking on the street or from parking.
Yeah, San Clemente tried doing that, and John probably remembers it, and that didn't go well, so they took that away. But okay, I think that's about it. It's glad to see the grandfathering piece come in, and the documents look great. So thank you for all the hard work on this and getting it moved through nicely, and hopefully it all works out. So that's all I had, just to clarify those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Next, I see Dimtree. I don't know whether that's the name or not.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my question was if you could elaborate a little bit more on how you are prioritizing the permits within the different STR types. I heard that you said first come, first serve. Is that true?
So it's kind of a twofold here. One is there's a prioritization criteria or tiered levels. So first tier or top priority is the primary and homestay short-term rentals, followed by tier 2, which is the multifamily homestays. Then we have the mixed use parcel short-term rentals. And then lastly is the non-primary short-term rentals. So that is the prioritization tiers. And as a question that came up earlier was, okay, what if I'm of the same prioritization level as, somebody else? It's when was your application submitted?
Got it. And then does location play at all into that? If, for example, you're near a park or a school versus another house that's near a freeway?
No.
Okay, thank you.
All right, it looks like next I see Carla.
Hello,
Hello, Carla.
Carla Moore here. I'm a property manager. And I have several permits that I've had for a long time for my owners that are grandfathered in. For the renewal process of those, do we do a lot of different things than we've done before? Because you've already vetted the inspection, the insurance, and the HOA. So are we still going to be doing that process? Or I'm kind of confused for the renewal of the grandfathered non-primary permits.
So all of those requested items will be required for the renewals, and including the inspection. We're going to make sure the insurance is up to date and current, as well as a follow-up letter from the HOA, because the HOAs may change their regulations, so we want to make sure that we're current with everything. So those renewals will need to be following this new application.
Okay, so on that subject, this will be interesting because you had a meeting with the HOAs yesterday. I don't mean to be, that's what how I use this delicately, but I don't expect a lot of cooperation from getting letters from HOAs. I may be incorrect in that assumption, but what if we just can't get the HOAs to cooperate or even answer the phone or respond in a timely manner?
Well, the city gets other information from homeowners associations, specifically for like if you're getting a building permit for doing an addition to your house. So they are aware of the regular need for letters for other types of improvements to your home. So we see this as a similar. So if anyone is interested in obtaining a short-term rental permit, we encourage you to reach out to your homeowners association now. And that's what one of the reasons why we gave the 2-month window prior to opening for short-term
So even though the HOAs like Monarch Hills, there's a lot of rentals in Monarch Hills, and that the HOA allows it, you're going to still require each owner to get a separate letter?
Correct.
Oh boy. Okay. And as far as insurance, so in addition to just having the policy, you want the insurance company to add the extra indemnification language?
Correct. So in the instance where it is located within the coastal zone, the coastal commission as well as the city would be indemnified.
Okay, coastal and city, okay.
And that a more detailed language associated with that is in the application as well as in the actual STR program for the coastal zone, which is loaded on the city's website as well.
Okay. Can you explain the logic behind taking the permit fee from $150 for renewals up to $620 about 4 times?
So that permit fee has been established since 2013. So it's very outdated, and it also accounts for all the work in establishing this program. I can tell you that since I've been here, I've been working on short-term rentals since 2018, more or less continually, and now we're in 2023. So there's been a lot of staff time in developing the regulations, as well as the city attorney's reimbursement costs associated with that. So that is what that's accounted for, and is actually
Another big point too is our enforcement. You know, since the short-term rentals originally came into our community, and this is really what allowed us to establish the program and offer more permits, is to have a very robust enforcement program that includes actually officers that visit you short-term rental permit properties on the weekends during the peak period. So it's pretty costly, but it's worthwhile for our community to ensure that the use is compatible with the neighborhoods. So the council felt that the cost was justified, and really it's not too expensive considering as compared to other communities.
So as far as the new program, inside or outside the coastal zone, are you anticipating a lot of permit requests for homestay as well as the primary?
So we did a survey several months ago, and we're inquiring as whether you were interested in short-term rental permit and what types. And there was some interest in those types, north of maybe 20 per type of the homestay and then the primary. So there is interest in those types. Whether or not they submit the application is to be determined.
If over the course of the next year you find that there isn't the interest level in homestay or primary, which is possible, we don't know obviously at this time, are you looking at possibly increasing the cap on non-primary?
That's for the city council to determine, and we're evaluating a lot of the program, or we're reevaluating the program with the city council in about a year, and we're going to be looking at what are issues associated with complaints and housing, and there's a lot of metrics that the Coastal Commission required us to track, and so we're going to be tracking that citywide, which the city council will be able to review to determine if they want to allow the additional 30 permits or make other changes. Now, any other changes other than increasing the cap to the maximum 115 outside the coastal zone, which would offer additional 30 permits, that would require an amendment to the municipal code. So that would be a separate process.
Okay. As we get into this, if we have questions about the new requirements with permit renewals, who can we ask at the city about that? As we're gathering this information, I can kind of anticipate more questions. Who would be our point of contact for that?
That would be me.
Okay, gotcha. I have your number. Okay, thank you, Jonathan.
You're very welcome. All right, next up, I see Greg Lynn. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Yeah, hi. I have a couple of questions. I live in a very small HOA consisting of 2 buildings, 4 units per building, so a total of 8 units. And I wanted to find out about the density, if and combined with the grandfathering in. So I wanted to find out what the density would be, and with regard, and then including the idea that you're now allowing for grandfathering in of existing STRs.
Yeah, good question. As Brenda had touched on, in the coastal zone, there's a maximum of 20%. So that would be applicable there to your community. So if you're already at or exceeding 20% in your community, then that would be it.
So eight units, 20%, that's 1.6 units. Is that, I assume you rounded to 2?
Well, those are existing, right? So we wouldn't be allowing any new permits.
Okay, and what happens if there was 3 STR permits of the 8 units? And there's 2 buildings of 4 units per building. So basically there'd be no new permits would be allowed then, correct?
Correct.
And the grandfathered in will be allowed to operate even though it's above the density rule?
Yes.
That really didn't help too much at all. Okay. And any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Linda A.
Linda.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Linda.
All right, thank you. Most of my questions have been answered by all the other folks asking great questions and you giving great answers. When you had the meeting yesterday with the HOA representatives on the website, you have a link where we can see that recording. However, that recording says that it needs a code for us to be able to view the recording. Can you give us that code so we can view that recording from the meeting yesterday?
Yeah, that wasn't our intention. We'll definitely have to fix that for y'all. John, are you aware of that?
I was not. We'll make sure that gets addressed tomorrow. We do apologize for that. So yes, this meeting, as well as the meeting from yesterday, will be available and will be not require any code, probably by tomorrow, late morning.
Okay, to go and review the recording. That'd be great. Thank you for taking care of that, because I did want to listen in and hear if, our HOA, and because my concern too is getting the letter from the HOA. We've always before just had to show you the, CC&Rs and it was fine, and getting the letter is going to be a challenge, but I guess that's what we're going to have to do. And it sounds like if we're existing and grandfathered, we're still going to have to be inspected and still comply with all of the new documentation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and even though your 5.38 section regulations and the Coastal Commission CDP regulations that were approved don't say anything about actually obtaining a letter of authorization from the HOA, the language is completely different, you're still going to hold us to having to get a letter.
Well, I think the letter is proof that it is in compliance with the CC&R regulations.
Right, but so is a copy of the regulations from the HOA that we've always provided before.
We feel it's appropriate for us to get a letter from you rather than the city looking at, obviously, several different CC&Rs and making an interpretation. So it's better for the city to obtain the letter.
Okay, and from your meeting yesterday, since I wasn't able to listen on the recording, did it sound like most of the HOA representatives understood and felt that that wasn't going to be an undue burden, that they'd be able to provide a letter of authorization?
That's correct. Yeah, and like I said before, associations provide letters for a lot of things, including, additions and remodels and, even exterior improvements. If you want to do a pool in your house and you live in a homeowners association, you need a letter from them. So this is not a new thing that the homeowners associations are doing. And so this should not be a problem.
All right. Well, we have a timing issue in Monarch Hills because our board of HOA is changing our property management company. So it just adds a little extra stress for the timing of that, because that happens April 1st. But that's okay. We'll deal with that. So thank you. And I think, and so just to clarify on the indemnification and the language for the waiver for the city and then the Coastal Commission, you're saying that that's not coming from the property owner, but that we have to have that from our insurance company.
Yeah, it's the insurance company that has to provide that insurance policy.
Okay. So if we have the 1 million, umbrella for liability that covers our rental unit, then we have to get the language. And so they send you essentially a certificate of insurance that has additional indemnity language.
Right. And Linda, it sounds like you're an existing permit holder, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So just to reiterate, you don't have to renew on May 1st. Your renewal will be consistent with your annual renewal.
Yeah, which is like May 6th.
Oh, okay, that's gonna help you, but got it.
All righty. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next it looks like we have Michelle. I'm gonna ask you to unmute.
All these people are existing. Most of these people are existing.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Michelle Gaston?
Yes.
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Hello?
Yes, you can hear you,
You can hear
Michelle.
me? Okay. All right. I just have a couple questions and I think I know the answers. I just wanted to make sure. So if there's one owner and there's a fourplex that's currently rented out, you know, the 4 units, would a short-term rental, would that one owner need a 1 permit or 4 permits? Or I guess because of the density, they could only do 1 permit. But what if it was a duplex? You know, would you need 2 permits if it was 1 owner for a duplex?
So each owner is only allowed 1 permit. So if they
Okay.
own a fourplex, they're only gonna be able to get it for 1 unit, and they need to figure out which unit that's gonna be, assigned to.
Okay, could you change the unit over time? You know, have it be 1 unit, then another one, and if it's in the same building, or does it have to be designated to one of the apartments?
You could probably change it during the renewal of the permit
Okay,
on the same property.
okay,
So they wouldn't
and
really
then,
before, but
okay, and then currently, you know, if somebody wanted to do like a 30-day or more rental, that an STR is not, a permit is not required, correct? It's just like a regular rental.
correct.
And then are there any additional regulations for a 30-day short, I get, it's not really a short-term rental, but are there any, like the insurance and everything else you had mentioned?
No, that's just like a normal rental. So the city is not involved. There's no permit required for anything for what's considered a long-term rental, which is 30 days or more.
Okay, and then the last question, and you mentioned the priority is based off of the list and the type, but the priority, I mean, let's say, you know, at 9 a.m. on the May 1st, is it going to be like a timestamp thing? If there's a group that fits under the same type of structure?
Yeah, so it'll be timestamped via the email when it comes in. So we're gonna know who comes in first and what time each one comes in, so that they can be organized based on time in as well as type.
Okay, okay, thank you very much.
All right, next I see
William.
William. Ask you to unmute. Go ahead, William. Are you there, William?
We want to go on to Andre.
All right, yeah, we'll move on to Andre. I'm going to be selecting you here. Ask you. You there, Andre?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Real quick, sorry, I joined a little bit late, so I think you probably answered most of these questions. And I was not able to really view the map very well. And there's a lot of Monarch Hills people talking. So Monarch Hills is in the non-coastal zone, is that correct?
It is in the coastal zone.
It is in the coastal zone. Okay. And you said earlier that there was something about 60 and that was capped already for non-primary. Is that correct?
So in the coastal zone, if you're going to be doing, well, anywhere, if it's your primary residence and you're going to be renting it for a total of 60 days or less in a year, then you would be the category of primary short-term rental, which is also the highest prioritization for the types of short-term rentals.
Okay, and if it's a second home, then it's considered a non-primary, correct?
Correct. So it would not be your primary residence. You would not live there. be, more or less just a whole house rental.
Okay, and so when I basically got onto the meeting when you were saying something about 60 and capped, and maybe I was not understanding correctly.
That's for outside the coastal zone.
Outside the coastal zone. Okay, and so okay, 60 capped. And so then there was something, a gentleman earlier said something, there was a certain percentage or 5 units for multi something. I was not understanding that as well. Sorry.
So for multifamily properties, it'd be like a condominium. There's a 20% limitation for the number of short-term rental permits that can be issued to a multifamily unit parcel. So that limitation is located within the regulations for the short-term rental permits. It's actually for the coastal zone, in those regulations, it's section 3, subsection H. So take a look at that. If you have any questions, you can feel free to give me a call and follow up with me on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Andre. All right, next I see I still see Matt's hand raised, so I'm thinking you might have a new question.
Well, maybe we should go finish up the list though, John.
Oh.
We have Barbara Wilson.
Yeah, sorry about that, Barbara. I'm gonna ask you to unmute.
Okay.
Here you are.
Sorry, wasn't working. The question I have is related to the non-coastal zone. The ordinance has verbiage saying that from time to time, the city can decide to increase the number of STRs outside the coastal zone. And there doesn't seem to be any parameters related to that. And I see that there's likely going to be 30 more units that are going to probably be approved before too long. But my concern is after that, what happens? We're very concerned, and particularly areas that are not in HOAs are going to be particularly hard hit because they have no protections. And so there will be clustering in the Lantern District and areas around the high school and so forth. So I'd really like to know what your plan is for the increase.
So right now, outside the coastal zone, there are 25 available permits. And as stated, right now, the non-primary is at the subcap of 60, so no new non-primary permits can be issued. So right now, phase 1 rollout for the first year, making available 25 permits. In about a year, the city council will evaluate the program and how things are going. And there's an opportunity to consider increasing that an additional 30, up to an additional 30 permits. However, the ordinance is specific in the overall cap of 115 short-term rental permits outside the coastal zone. So if to consider adding an additional permits would require an amendment to the municipal code to do that, which would be an action by the city council.
Could I ask another? Okay. Could I ask another question? Could it be done in the terms of an emergency, the way this has been done, where there's very limited input from the residents? If you do decide to increase it above the 115?
That'd have to be a question for our legal counsel. I can't answer that question for you, Barbara.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Barbara.
Zoom user?
Zoom user. I'm gonna ask you to
Sorry,
unmute.
that's me. So for Capo Bay, for Beach Road, they're not a homeowners association. Are you considering, do you need that for Capo Bay for Beach Road? Any letter or anything like that?
A letter is not required for that community.
Got it. Thank you.
I think, John, was William one that didn't respond? I think I heard him talking a little while ago. Maybe you want to unmute. So we're at the end of the list of people that have spoke. I know we can go back and talk to people that have already asked questions, but just making sure that everyone.
Yes,
William?
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I'm sorry, there was a little technical difficulty before. I just want some clarification on the grandfathering in of previous permits. In my situation, I had 2 for a multi-unit. Are they both going to be grandfathered in?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. You nearly, my heart stopped once before there on that. Additionally, sometimes getting a very large insurance company to do paperwork in what we would assume to be a timely fashion doesn't happen. Like getting the city reassigned and indemnified for the $1 million policy. If that's moving along in good speed, I'm hoping that the city would know that it's in process. Some of this stuff might not be done by the timeframes that you're looking for. That
Well,
work.
Sorry, go ahead, William.
The question was getting letters assigned from large insurance companies to state the city of Dana Point as the $1 million policy holder. Sometimes that takes quite a bit of time. Is the city going to let some of that stuff stay in process when we're looking for clerical stuff?
I would say that right now we've got a 2-month window. So I would recommend working towards those policies now, having those queued up and ready. Hopefully, if they value their clients, they can produce this in 2 months. But obviously, we'll be identifying property owners of when they've been identified and when we're going to be moving forward with the permit evaluation process in terms of the inspection and the other necessary documents. So we don't require anyone to go with a specific insurance company. And so if your insurance company is moving too slowly, you're more than welcome to try another insurance company.
Okay, thank you.
That's it for the new speakers. Looks like Matt Yakub was wanting to speak again.
Yes. Hey, guys, sorry. Thank you so much for just, a very thorough process in general. I know it was a pretty large undertaking. I just had a piggyback question, since I believe another person on this particular chat had mentioned the Monarch Hills dilemma. So for me, I live across the street. I own my primary is in Monarch Beach. Nagel splits the 2 areas. But that said, I would be an additional contact in case a property manager couldn't get there. Would I be able to be added as a secondary emergency contact or no?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you don't have to have a property management company. You can be the primary contact as long as you feel that you can be responsive.
No, I will be responsive, but I still want someone like to manage it if I'm not in it. If I'm for whatever reason, I still will have them facilitate that process. And that person that I'm thinking of was on this call anyway, so it should be fine. The other thing I wanted to ask about, given Monarch Hills' dilemma, and someone had already mentioned they're between HOAs. Say I contact them tomorrow and I get lucky and they're willing to do a letter. Come April 1st, the HOA changes. How are you guys going to handle that?
You know what? I mean, we are not getting in the middle of residents and the associations. If you have a letter from your association and they try to renege on you, that's really between you and them.
No, I think I'm saying something slightly different. I'm saying as of now, it's the HOA is Keystone Pacific, right? And they may or may not change by May. If they give me a letter now and that's what I submit and it changes again, you guys need a secondary letter?
No.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay.
The letter is representing the association, not the property management company.
No, I'm talking about the HOA. So we're in the middle of potentially having a change in the HOA company. The board might kind of kick them out. So if the HOA company changes and I get a letter today and it's HOA company A, and come April 1st, it's a different HOA, you guys need a second letter from the new HOA, correct?
No, I mean, whoever is representing you at your time of your application, if you can say get a letter tomorrow and they indicate that a short-term rental can be permitted on your property, then, you know, we are not going to be questioning the validity of that.
Okay.
If you find
Okay,
out
cool.
though that they are operating out of place, then that's going to be a risk to you. Like for instance, if a new company was to come in and say, well, that letter was issued in error, that's really going to be a burden to you to have to deal with.
Got it. I'm not too concerned about the burdensome because the CCRs are pretty clear, and then the rules and the regs, like where Monarch Hills is allowed to have them. And I think I had sent those on to you guys, and I get what you're doing, so it's fine. I'll do whatever I can to secure that letter. Yeah, I think really the other thing I had, just coming from a slight IT background, have you guys considered, I don't know how this has happened in the past, but you guys require all attachments via email. Have you guys considered maybe instead of taking them via email, an actual upload? Because you might run into certain constraints from outbound emails to you guys in terms of size. So I don't know if that's been an issue in the past. I was just kind of thinking of a potential bottleneck that can occur. And maybe it's a little too technical, but if you guys have considered it, it might be something that would be beneficial. That's all.
Yeah, we'll explore all options. I appreciate your ideas, Matt. I think we're trying to prevent any technical problems at that hour. So we'll certainly pass on this concept to our IT group folks.
Cool. And then one last question. In terms of an inspection, I get it. You guys are going to have, someone come inspect the grounds and make sure it's fine. If for whatever issue there's a non-compliance, does the owner have time to be able to correct it, or are they deemed, at that point in time invalid and they'll be dropped from the process?
That's why one thing I think John might have mentioned is one thing that might determine an applicant ineligible is that, for instance, they might have some unpermitted construction that was done on their property. That's one of the things that we'll be looking at during the inspection. So it is in the best interest of the property owners that want to submit applications to look to see that in our records that we do not have any potential expired building permits or unpermitted work that might have been done in the past. And you can go onto our website, I think, John, to see if you have any expired building permits. And it's, like I said, it's your best interest to do that prior to submitting your application, because say you were to submit an application and find out that there was some illegal work that was done even before you purchased your property, that would basically deem you to be ineligible at that point to have a permit. And basically you'd have to remedy that before a permit would be issued.
Perfect. That's actually what I was after. So thank you so much for addressing that, Brenda. Thanks a lot.
So next up, I see Miriam.
Miriam, I don't think we haven't talked to you yet. Sorry.
Well, I already had a lot of the answers because, I've been going to these meetings for 10 years.
Yes, you have.
So, hi, everyone. I'm Miriam Rupke. I'm both a property owner and a property manager. So if anyone needs a good property manager, hi. But anyway, so Brenda, John, you guys know me. I'm very compliant with my property and all the properties that I manage. I'm just having a really hard time wrapping my brain around this whole indemnification with the insurance. I've spoken with a few of the agents that I've used before, and I don't know. I mean, have you guys reached out to other insurance companies to verify that this is something that can even be done? Or do you know of other cities that have done this where it was possible? Because right now I'm just getting a lot of pushback and it's concerning.
Is this a standard condition that the city has always had, and also all other cities have it? So we have not heard any concerns about obtaining the required insurance. I was contacted by an individual indicating that they are an insurance company that specialize in these type of insurance certificates. So maybe there are certain insurance companies out there that we need to find.
Is this like a separate umbrella policy that we would get on the, so it's not our regular home insurance policy? Is this like a separate umbrella policy that it would have the $1 million and then is it indemnifying the city or adding the city as an additional insured?
Maybe John can find the exact wording.
So the language says, and this is straight out of the program as well as in the application, it says shall provide proof of general liability insurance in the amount of $1 million combined, single limit, and executed agreement to identify, defends, the city and the Coastal Commission harmless for any and all claims and liabilities of any kind whatsoever resulting from or arising out of the issuance of a short-term rental permit or other use of the dwelling to which the STR permit applies as a short-term rental.
Where do I get this language from again? I apologize.
It's in the application. It's
Okay.
on page two or three of the application, as well as in both short-term rental programs.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully it's not going to be an obstacle to put the application together, but we'll certainly provide some more clarification if needed.
Okay. All right. That's all I had. Thank you.
All right. It looks like we have a couple of repeat questions here. So I see Linda A. I'm gonna ask you to unmute.
Hey there, thanks. Sorry for the repeat, but following on what Miriam was just bringing up, because that was still kind of nagging at me. My understanding from, and now that you just reread that specific language, my understanding is that, yes, we're going to show you that we have 1 million liability to cover the rental and prove that to the city. However, I thought the way the language reads is that the indemnification is from us as the property owner. The insurance company's not going to indemnify you for that. They're providing the insurance for our liability, for our coverage. So we have to turn around and indemnify the city. So it's similar to, for instance, in your Dana Point community sports programs and your educational programs, you have an indemnity waiver that the participants have to sign. So that's what I pictured, is that we would indemnify you, but we're also going to show you that we're covered as the property owner from our insurance company for this 1 million liability, but we're going to indemnify and hold you and the Coastal Commission harmless.
So it sounds like we might have to provide some more information, best we can, on the city's website. John and I certainly aren't experts in this arena, so I perhaps we do something on the website.
Yeah, that'd be great if you guys could provide the waiver like you do the waiver for your other things.
I don't know if that's it, but like I said, we'll find out for everybody.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Let's see here. Shelley, I'm gonna ask you to unmute if you still have questions for us.
I was just going to say, I know I have permits in Santa Barbara and in San Clemente, and we do sign that indemnity waiver, but it's signed from the city, exactly like she just explained, but we have the $1 million policy to show to them. But so just clarifying, that's not a question. So I don't know if yours sounds like it's worded differently, but on all the existing permits that are grandfathered in, is this something new, or did they have this in their insurance policies? Because I've done so many insurance too, and I don't know insurance companies that will do that, but maybe I'm wrong. Do you already have that existing with all these other people?
We do have the existing requirements. No.
Oh, so they've all gotten it. So it must not be as hard as I thought. Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Might be though that some of the older ones, I'm not sure how thorough the city was in reviewing the insurance certificates for the older permits. Miriam,
okay. It sounds like the last woman who was speaking already has permits and is going to be grandfathered in, but she doesn't have it that way. But all right, I guess we'll clarify it later. It's dragging it on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andre, I'm gonna ask you to unmute. Andre?
Sorry, my question was answered. I appreciate it.
All right, no problem. Thank you, Andre. Miriam.
Hi, am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, going back to the insurance question, no, our policies are not set up that way. We don't have unless I'm misunderstanding, we've never had a requirement to have an insurance policy to indemnify the city. Is that what was said before?
Well, the insurance requirement has been part of the existing program.
We do
and-
have insurance. Yeah, we have. I mean, we all have to have insurance, but there's never been a requirement to indemnify the city. And I agree with what Linda is saying. I manage Linda's property, and this is, you know, I really think that the city needs to get clarification on this, because I really do think that this is going to be a challenge. I deal with, you know, insurance agencies on a regular basis, and I just don't see them adding this language to indemnify the city. I agree with what Linda says, is that this would have to be the homeowner indemnifying the city themselves. I do not see any insurance policy adding this language.
I understand your concern, and we'll certainly get some clarifying information to share with everybody.
Thank you.
I see no other hands, John.
All right, well,
Oh, wait, Jeffrey just raised his hand.
Jeff, we see you. I'm gonna ask you to unmute.
Sorry, I didn't want to add, or I don't really know too much about the insurance, but I'm doing this with other things that I'm working on. And do you guys want to be a certificate holder or something? Because I don't know what the laws have changed, but it's becoming extremely difficult and costly to have the insurance companies sign off for other companies. But you're the city, so I'm not exactly sure if it's the same thing. But I'm having extreme difficulties with my other business ventures with insurance, with this exact, sounds like the same exact thing. So I don't want to add or anything. I'm just saying that's what I'm going through in other avenues, and it sounds like it's kind of similar.
Yeah, hopefully we'll come up with some easy answers for the situation.
Sorry, I don't want to be a burden there, but thanks for everything.
Yeah, you're fine. Thank you, Jeffrey.
All right, Matt, we see you back with your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just thinking out loud, because I get the, you know, in terms of legality, the city wants to cover, you know, itself from liability as well as the coastal commission. Can't we just sign a waiver and just, you know, legally kind of put that to rest, so this requirement for identification wouldn't be there? I mean, I know that's a legal question, but wouldn't that also suffice, or no?
Yeah, that is a legal question, and I think that's what Shelley was mentioning, that she does in San Clemente, so
Got it.
that's certainly something we'll look into.
Got it. And then one last question for those of us who are newer: how long will we be given time to actually get a certificate if we're granted a permit? Sorry, get a insurance policy for the 1 million if we're granted the permit.
So I'd encourage you to get that going now and not activating it until, you know, we let you know that you're queued up and ready for your permit.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot, guys. That's it for me.
But timing wise, like say we get applications on May 1st and we were reviewing those, we were anticipating conducting the inspection. I think we're talking within maybe 2 or 3 weeks, John, of getting the applications and determining is complete and is eligible for a permit to be issued. So, you know, potentially if you're in that category, we would definitely require the certificate before we issue the permit.
Understood.
So, yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys. Definitely a great job. Thank you.
Really good discussion. We appreciate everyone's time and interest. And John and I also are available if we have any follow-up questions. So feel free to call us or email us as you proceed. Good night, everybody. Enjoy the dry weather, hopefully, finally.
Thank you, everyone, for participation. This should be loaded by tomorrow afternoon with no code. Bye.